Hello everybody and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol custom character creation video, and this being the 5th Friday of January and the first month for the series where we had 5 days to create characters, we decided we're going to mix things up just a little bit, and instead of doing a 5th Pokemon, because we kind of got the obvious ones out of the way with the starters and then Pikachu, we're going to do a trainer for this one, and I think there's some kind of cool ideas I have floating around for Ash here, and of course we are going to be doing Ash because he is kind of the most recognizable trainer. There was some thoughts about maybe doing like Red, or even like a cool kind of Ash, Brock, and Misty on the same base sort of deal, but I think I want to save those to be potentially other characters in the future. So for Ash, we're going to be doing kind of two main things. First of all, obviously, he's going to be more of a support piece because you don't exactly see Ash walking around decking people in the show. But in addition to that, we're going to be making trainers the leaders for the Pokemon teams. I think that'll make things really, really interesting and just kind of create a cool, unique role for them where all of the Pokemon trainer leaders are going to be very, very support focused, because that just kind of makes sense with the way they operate in the shows and the books and everything like that. So yeah, with that said, we're going to take a very brief wiki dive on Ash. I'm not going to spend too much time here because I'm going to assume most of you guys are familiar with who Ash is, at least on a basic level. So Ash is a Pokemon trainer from Pallet Town whose goal is to become a Pokemon master. His first Pokemon was a Pikachu that he received from Professor Oak after arriving late at his laboratory. There's a bunch more there, but really that's kind of all you need to know. He wants to be a Pokemon master. He wants to be the very best, like no one ever was. And, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, because obviously, unlike the other Pokemon, we don't have a list of, like, attacks and stuff we can kind of base what he does off of. So we're going to have to get a little bit more creative with this, starting out with his basic stat line here. And I want to let the Pokemon be kind of the main focus in most rosters. I also want going 6 wide, or I guess technically 7 wide, to be a realistic possibility, so I don't want to give him too high of a threat. I think I'm going to aim for most trainers to be about 3 threat, and we'll kind of go from there. So yeah, we're going to keep him at 3 threat there, and as for defenses, I think we're just going to keep him as 3-3-3. That kind of makes sense for me. He doesn't feel like he should be particularly strong in any area, so yeah, that kind of works for me. There's an argument maybe to bump him to like a 4 energy, because I mean, man gets zapped by Pikachu so many times in the earlier parts of the show that he must be pretty good against energy attacks. So maybe we'll bump him to a 4 there. He also gets burned by Charizard all the time, so yeah, that kind of makes sense for me. And I don't think I'm going to be giving him too much in the way of defensive tech, so that works out all right. As for stamina, I think we're going to make him a 5-5 probably, maybe a 5-6. We'll see how he's feeling as we've done some more of his stats, so we'll kind of maybe revisit that later. Size 2, he is just a normal dude. And for movement speed, we're going to give him a medium there, nothing too crazy. He's not particularly slow, not particularly fast. And with that out of the way, now we got to start actually thinking about what we want to do for this character. Alrighty, so the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out what we want to do for attacks for Ash. And this is a weird one, because as I mentioned earlier, we don't really see Ash walking around decking anybody in the show. I'm trying to think of a single time that I've seen it happen. I haven't seen the entirety of the show, but I mean, it probably doesn't happen much, if at all. That said, I think we do kind of need to give him just a basic strike, if nothing else. Not going to make it very good. I definitely want to kind of discourage it being something he does frequently, but I think him having one is somewhat important, so we'll give him a strike, and it's literally just going to be like a range 2, 4 dice, maybe a gainer. I'm thinking it'll gain him 1 power. That's where I'm going to land on that. So yeah, we'll give him that just kind of so he has something there. But for the most part, we're going to be trying to encourage that that is not something he wants to be using. Alrighty, with a basic strike out of the way, there's a couple things that we want to make sure we give him here. So I can kind of think of at least, let's say, 3 things off the top of my head that I want to make sure Ash has. So the first one of these is going to be some sort of leadership, and I'm not 100% sure what I want to call this yet, so we're going to just kind of put the leader symbol and keep it as a placeholder for now. The next one here is going to be some form of making one of his current Pokemon, obviously not, himself, attack something. And I want this to be an action, and basically I think I'm just going to call it like I Choose You or something like that. Although that would be a really good name for the leadership, so maybe we'll end up playing with that. But basically, the idea for this is I want it to be an X cost. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, it's going to be an action, and you're going to pay X, where X is the threat of the character you want to pick. So if you're picking any of the starters, any of the ones we've already made, it would be free. But if you're picking anything like higher threat, like maybe you're bringing an evolved version, as we kind of discussed, the evolved version of the starters would be higher threats. So let's say a Charizard, which we'll roughly say is a 5 threat. If you want to pick a 5 threat, it would cost you 2 power. Whereas if you want to pick Charmander, it would cost you 0. And all it's going to do is it's going to let them make a 0 cost attack. And I think that'll be really interesting. It'll give him this kind of role of being able to be like, okay, he is going to stand here and say these 2 Pokemon are going to make an attack. I'm also going to say he can't select the same Pokemon more than once in a turn, but he can use the superpower more than once. So he can have multiple Pokemon attack once, but he can't make, say, Charizard attack twice. I think it'll be neat. I think there's an argument that maybe the X should start at 2. So if he's picking the starters, it's going to still cost him 1 power to use their attacks, just to kind of make up for the versatility that he's giving there. But yeah, I'm going to kind of think on that one as I'm writing it out. But for now, I'm going to start working on this and we'll jump back in. Alrighty, so there we have I Choose You. This is going to be an action. It's going to cost you X. You can pay 0 to 5 power to use this superpower. Choose a non-dazed allied character. Within range 3, which was something I forgot to mention earlier, there should be some sort of range limit on this, and I think range 3 is probably fine. I could see an argument for 4. With threat no greater than the amount of power spent plus 2. So if you spend 0, you can choose a 2 threat, which we will be creating 2 threat Pokemon probably in the other series that I mentioned during the Charmander video, which I'll talk about more at the end of this. But we will probably be creating some 2 threat Pokemon at some point, but for the most part, your 3 threat and above Pokemon will cost you 1 or more power. And that character may make an attack with a power cost of 0. A character can only be chosen by the superpower once per turn. And yeah, I think this works really, really well. I think it's going to be really cool for like first turn things too, if you can kind of be like, okay, I'm going to have Charmander double move up to a middle point, and then when Ash goes, he can walk up and say, well, Charmander's going to attack now. And yeah, kind of get like a cool range extension from that, which I think is kind of neat. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing that I wanted to give him here, and I think works pretty well for kind of the like Ace Trainer Pokemon Master style thing that he's going for, of like he's very battle centric, so having an offensive style ability works pretty well for him. The next thing I want to give him is a recall ability, and basically for this, I want it to kind of be like Gwen's Lifesaver. I want him to be able to yank his Pokemon back when they're going to be attacked and kind of say like, no, you've done enough here, come back, and yeah, be able to basically just pull them to safety. I think that works pretty well for you know, again, kind of that Ace Trainer style role of being like, okay, you go attack, you come back, you know, stay away from those attacks, that sort of thing. So I think that works pretty well, so I'm gonna word that out. It just would be basically the exact same as Gwen's Lifesaver. So when your allied character is targeted, he can pay this power. They have to be within, I want to say range 4 is how Gwen's works. And he pushes them towards himself small, and if that gets them out of the attack's range, then the attack ends, and the attacker gets refunded their action. So yeah, we'll word that out. It's going to be super long and wordy, but yeah, I'll worry about that part. Alrighty, so now we have Pokemon Return, because, I mean, we wanted to keep the name generic, so we didn't want to do, like, Pikachu Return or anything like that. When an enemy character targets another allied character with an attack within this character's line of sight and range 4, you may use this superpower to push the targeted allied character towards this character's small. If at the end of the push the targeted character is outside of the attack's range or the attacker's line of sight, the attack ends. If it is the attacker's activation and the attack did not target multiple characters, they may make another attack action, or another action. This super can only be used once per turn, and yeah, I mean, it's a really, really good power, so I think it'll work pretty well with him, and just in general, I think it works pretty well for Ash. So yeah, I'm liking both of these abilities so far. I think they're both interesting, and now I gotta figure out what I want to do for this leadership here. Alrighty, so I've done some thinking on what I want this leadership to be, and I have decided I am going to take the I Choose You phrase and put that on the leadership. So instead I change this other one to Pokemon Master, because what I'm thinking for the leadership is kind of similar to like a Guardians of the Galaxy style Winging It tokens, where you're going to choose, I'm leaning towards three, but maybe less Pokemon or allied characters, I suppose, and you're going to give them tokens at the start of every round. And what these tokens will do is, I'm thinking they're going to give you a power, so you'll be able to start some Pokemon out with more power, and they will. I'm leaning towards being like the first time that Pokemon makes an attack, it gains like one extra die or something like that. I want it to be different from the rerolls that Guardians are giving, but then something that is still like impactful, probably still offensive, which is why I'm thinking attack dice, and something that'll be like a one-off. It won't apply to multiple things, so you're only going to get it for one attack. And why I think it's interesting, if it's the first attack they make, they spend the token, or maybe it's like a when they make an attack, they can choose to spend the token. But the reason why I think it's interesting is you can give out your tokens to at least two other Pokemon, and then when Ash goes, he can use Pokemon Master to pick those two Pokemon and use those tokens right away, kind of, removing your opponent's ability to like deny you those tokens while you're still giving a bunch of extra power to the other Pokemon. So yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think I'm going to kind of go that direction with it. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out, and we'll jump right back in. Alrighty, so there we have the I Choose You. During the power phase up to 3, I decided on 3 because I felt like it wasn't going to be strong enough with 2, and with 2 I would probably have had to make it like 2 additional dice or something like that, and that starts to get into potentially really, really problematically strong territory. So I figured we'll go with 3 and just keep it simple. 3 chosen tokens. When a character gains a chosen token, it immediately gains 1 power. When a character with a chosen token makes an attack, it may choose to spend its chosen token. If it does, it adds 1 additional die to the attack roll. And then, just like Winging It tokens, at the end of the round, you're going to remove all of the chosen tokens from your characters that have them, so they won't be able to hold on to them throughout rounds. Although I did consider not adding that part and making it something that like you could potentially just kind of stockpile them, but I feel like it's probably safer to go this way. So we're gonna go this way, and yeah, I think this works. This works pretty well for Ash. He kind of gets to be like, these are the Pokemon that I'm focusing on today, and yeah, they get a little bit stronger for a round, and then it works great with his Pokemon Master being able to be like, okay, well, I gave one to Charmander, I gave one to Squirtle, so we're gonna Pokemon Master Charmander, maybe get that Incinerate with that extra die, increasing our odds, and then we'll have Squirtle go and attack the same target or something like that. So yeah, I think it's interesting, and I'm actually pretty happy with how that came out. So yeah, definitely liking where this is going so far, but I feel like we gotta add at least one more thing on here. Alrighty, so the last thing I want to put on his card, I was kind of debating between a couple of ideas for this, but the one that I'm kind of landing on is some sort of basically passive or a reroll buff for Pokemon when they're close to him. Specifically, I'm leaning towards attack buff, but I might make it for defense as well. Basically, Strategic Genius is kind of what I'm going for here. Maybe I make it work on Ash himself. I don't know. I think it works pretty well for him just kind of thematically to have something like that. I did think about giving him something along the lines of, really, I just wanted to name an ability, gotta catch them all. I thought about maybe doing something with that for the leadership, or something for a superpower with like, based on how many allies he has close to them, to kind of be like, yeah, go wider because you've got more Pokemon sort of idea. And you get like some sort of buff for that, or something is stronger. But I couldn't really think of something that kind of fits as the actual effect for that. I had tons of ideas for how you could kind of, benefit from it, and how it could encourage going wide. But in terms of what it would actually do, I had a really, really hard time figuring out what I wanted that to do. Like, I was thinking maybe like some sort of defensive reroll thing for Ash if he has like allied characters within 2. Wasn't 100% sure. So I think it's just kind of cleaner just to go for like a more Strategic Genius style ability, and just kind of say like, yeah, his Pokemon, and I guess himself, will be slightly stronger. But I think I'm going to have it be kind of contingent on, like, it'll only affect him if he's within 2 of an allied character. So I don't know if that's even necessary, honestly. He's not really going to be punching super often, and his defenses are not really anything crazy without having that reroll anyways. So yeah, honestly, it's probably just going to be strategic genius exactly where he's going to get a reroll and allies close to him will also get a reroll. Alrighty, and there we have given him Pokemon Champion. So yeah, it's just strategic genius, given some rerolls and a little bit of a bubble there. And yeah, I think that that'll work pretty well. Again, just for the kind of trainer that Ash is, works in my opinion. So yeah, we didn't really have much in the way of kind of the gotta catch 'em all thing. I also considered giving his attack be like literally throwing a Pokeball at someone, maybe even giving him like a Black Cat style attack where it like staggers them because they get trapped inside the Pokeball and then they have to pop back out. But I thought, A, that would probably lead more towards him just attacking more, which isn't the idea. I definitely want the focus to be on the Pokemon attacking. And B, just didn't really make sense for most characters that aren't Pokemon in this game, so yeah, felt like it would have been out of place to put something like that there, so I chose not to. But yeah, looking at this, I'm pretty happy with where we've gotten with him here. I don't think he needs any more than this. I think he's probably going to be fine. If anything, he's probably going to be a little bit power hungry. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up choosing himself quite often just to get that extra power, because on his average turn, he's not going to be actually gaining any power through Pokemon Master because he's making attacks with other Pokemon. So that's going to be something that's going to have to kind of be kept up with him, is like if he doesn't have a 2-threat character that he can make them make attacks, he needs to gain at least 1 power between the rounds to be able to go twice, which is definitely a bit of a concern. I thought about a couple different ways I could have fixed that, but I think it's probably fine, especially since being a leader that kind of has the versatility he has, he's probably going to end up getting targeted and hit a fair bit, so he'll probably gain some power from that, and if he doesn't, then I think he's going to feel just fine anyways. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not 100% sure how well he'd actually play out, but I do think he's definitely going to be a very unique character, and I like the idea of kind of what he's trying to do here. I'm also just realizing I didn't put an affiliation on his leadership, so I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, there we go. I fixed that up. Let me duplicate that to the flip side as well real quick. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with where he is overall. I think he's alright, but definitely let me know what you guys think down below. I also considered, kind of for fun, just giving him immunity to shock. Honestly, screw it. I think it's funny, so we'll do that as well, because he's been shocked by Pikachu so many times. And hey, you know what? I'll actually give him immunity to Incinerate as well, because Charizard burned him so many times as well, and I think it's just kind of funny, so yeah, it'll work. I don't think it really changes his power level all that much. Actually, immunity to Incinerate's probably pretty nice for him, but the immunity to Shock really doesn't change much, because he really shouldn't be punching all that often. But yeah, I think it's funny, so we'll throw it on there anyways. Alrighty, but for real, I think he's done there. He's got the immunity to Shock and Incinerate. He's got tons of stuff he wants to do here, but he's definitely going to be a little bit on the power-hungry side, but I think that's okay. I think that works really well for Ash as a character, too, just kind of being someone who's very overly ambitious and oftentimes, especially in the earlier seasons of the show, kind of reaching beyond what he was capable of and trying to achieve more, and in theory potentially being able to do so if he if he gets hit a little bit, or if he's playing on a power based scenario, potentially being able to do so once in a while. So yeah, I think that works really well for the character, and I think it's going to be a really interesting leader for the other Pokemon characters. So yeah, that is going to do it for Ash here. As I mentioned earlier, definitely let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think I made him too strong, too weak? Always curious to hear how you guys are feeling on him. But that is going to conclude the Pokemon month of January here. So that leads us into February, where you guys have voted for the DC villains to be the next ones that we do. However, I do also want to continue the Pokemon because they've been so much fun to make. So going forward, we are going to be starting a members only series where I'm going to be doing the remaining 151 Pokemon, excluding some of the main ones that I might want to do in the main series on the, for everyone, such as legendaries or the final evolutions of the starters. Those I'm probably going to exclude from that members only series. I'd like to do those where everyone can watch them because they're going to be really, really, anticipated characters, and I want to leave that open for anybody. But for the characters that I don't think will do particularly well in the main series, but for those of you maybe who are big fans of this series and specifically the Pokemon characters in this series, I think those could be a lot of fun. So I want to do them, and I think that's kind of the best way to do them as content, where I'm not kind of flooding the mainstream with all these Pokemon characters that, a large percentage of the audience doesn't care about, but they're there if you guys are interested with them. So with that said, memberships are open on the channel. I have it as low as I can set it at 1 Canadian a month. So very, very, much on the cheaper side. I wanted to make this as accessible as possible for anyone who wants to watch that series. So that'll be starting next week, I believe. Just gotta figure out how I'm going to be doing that scheduling wise, but hopefully those will start coming out next week. But otherwise, that's going to do it for Pokemon Month. So I hope you guys have enjoyed, and until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.